morning. Good morning.
Good.
As you may have noticed, Dahlia was called away unexpectedly. Liz is somewhere off listening to us and probably laughing her butt off. But I'm Michelle Bruno. I'm with Rachel Stefan of
And
Snowball.
then they settled with
Welcome.
me. You got me.
Yeah, poor Rachel. Rachel, thank you so much. I mean, this was kind of a last minute fill in, and you are game, and we love you for that. But you're
Aw.
also
Well,
really
you know
knowledgeable.
what, Michelle? Because a lot of the times people mistaken me for Dahlia. Even at Expo, somebody goes like, "Are you Dahlia?" It's like, no, I get that. I know the curly hair does it, but I mean, no. And yeah.
Yeah, well, that you could be. You could. Anyway, welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. And we want to invite all of our geniuses in the audience from wherever you are, at whatever time it is of day, to please put your comments in the chat. We love hearing what you have to say. And today we're going to be talking about what's in the heads of event tech buyers and sellers. And this topic came about because last week, was it last week?
It's
We
almost
were at Expo. For those of you that watched last week, we kind of Dahlia and I went off on what was going on there. But Dahlia did a session on sourcing event technology. She had two organizers there and two suppliers, one of which was Rachel. So Rachel was, actually involved in the discussion, and they hit on some really interesting things around what technology buyers. One was a for-profit organizer, and one was a large trade association. And they talked about how they vet technology companies, what they can and can't do, what the red flags are, all of those things that suppliers really want to know, but also brought up a lot of points around, when I read the transcript, I was just thinking, I've been on the supplier side, and man, what do you want from me? If I was in your place, Rachel, I would just be like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
From
Well, we
but
do get those moments sometimes, like, huh? But it was a packed session, to be honest with you. For a session that was at 8:15 in the morning, and we thought, people have partied the night before and they're not gonna show up. It was packed, and most of it were organizers. Surprisingly, we were thinking we were having a bet. The average between suppliers and organizers actually was pretty much all of it's organizers in the room. So there was a lot of great insight that was expressed and shared there.
so one of the first topics that came up is how do suppliers get the attention of organizers? So what's your recollection of that discussion? Like what is the biggest like bad thing that you as a supplier can do for these folks?
Well, I mean, one of the comments from one of the panelists saying is like, don't slide into my DMs on LinkedIn, especially not in that intro connections. When you send a connection to
Yeah.
request and you add like a whole paragraphs of text there,
Yeah.
like don't do that. That's a big no-no. And it feels like, the thing that was recommended is like, it's relationship based. And we know this industry is very heavily relationship based. So it's like, you have to have a relationship or be in person. I mean, I think the fact of being at that event for Expo was a great place to be and connecting with people. I've met
Mhm.
people I've never met before, or at least we were in the process of contracting with them. And having connected with them, I feel like there was a stronger bond built. I mean, I'm not praising again, like the in person, everybody talks about the importance of in person, but that kind of goes to shows that, it helps in that, or at least having someone recommend someone to you. I mean, and I know Dahlia does a great job with that, being the connector and introducing organizers to technology that maybe that they wouldn't have thought of,
Mhm.
checking out, or that they're available.
But there's only so many of those opportunities across the year.
I
Some
know.
are good fits and some aren't. And still technologies will come to try and, meet buyers, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of like a crapshoot. So is that fair to say, oh, we only want to talk to people that we have relationships with, or who are recommended to us, or who our internal team bring to our attention? I mean, aren't they losing out?
Well, they are obviously, but I mean that's up to the supplier part of it to do a good job of educating and showcasing and promoting themselves to create some awareness about their product so that they can check them out. I mean, some of the ways, for us, for example, I speak, we get people coming because they've seen it used on other things, and that creates awareness. Or it doesn't have to be introducing it through someone, a relationship that you have with someone, but you have to do a good job at marketing yourself also, not in a commercial way like you're selling, but more educating, especially if it's a new technology or something that is different. It's better positioned to come off as, I'm showing you how I can help you, what's in it for you, as opposed to, there's something, a point that was brought up is like, they see technology where they're in love with their product, but they're not so much listening. And then the
Yeah.
key word that one of the panelists said is like listening to them, what they need and their challenges, and then providing, and not saying, oh, yes, we can do it, we do it all, and then next thing you know, it's like, okay, it can't solve all my problems or my challenges. So setting the expectations and being transparent of what the technology is able to do and not to do is also very key in gaining the trust of the organizer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it sounds though like, well, one of the points that came up also was often the technology companies aren't very good at saying explicitly what they do in marketing materials or even in their sales pitch. And a lot of the organizers are just kind of like,
Tell
we're
me
not
what it is. I know exactly. That was
like, what is your thing? What does it
what is
do?
your thing? I know. I mean, we go on websites sometimes and we go look and you see it's like, okay, I read it. It sounds pretty, but what is it exactly that you're doing? It's not clear. And that's one of the things that they mentioned. It's like, tell me in a nutshell, like, what is it that you do for me? Because sometimes it's too vague. They don't get it, or it's like too broad, and you don't specifically pinpoint. So that's really, the positioning and being clear on the messaging, like what is the outcome? Well, how are you helping me? That has to be clear, because obviously if you got their attention, you have to
Mhm.
explain exactly what it is that you're going to do for them.
So one organizer said because they are so big and they're a publicly held company, they can't do free trials. The
Mm.
only thing they can do is go into a company's sandbox and play with it. Is that, from a supplier perspective, is that a thing? Providing them the keys to go under the hood and see what's powering your platform. Does that make you nervous? Is that like a normal thing? Should we you be doing that? Are
I
you
mean,
okay
I
with
don't
it?
know. Like some suppliers would do that, offer it, especially if the organizer and their teams are the ones that are going to be running the technology. So
Mhm.
having to go through it and be able to play around with it and all that, it's an opportunity. But then again, that's where, if the technology is the user experience of the person coming in at it's like a new completely going in, if it's not easy and intuitive, it might backfire without training. Because obviously, if they are onboarded as a supplier and they're going to do it their own, I would assume that there will be a lot of training that will be part of that, and onboarding, and then getting them up to speed to how to run their thing there. For us is a little bit different, because technically, yes, we can give it to them, but there's no point in that, because yes, we sell a technology, but we also sell a service that goes with it. And that's a value add for us, because a lot of organizers are busy and they don't have the time. Even if they have marketers on staff and doing that, they appreciate the fact that we are the one running it for them. Although they'll have access, they can play around with it, but they won't have time to do the small little task in running it specifically.
So one of the things that both the organizers on the panel said was one of their internal processes for vetting technology is to bring their own people together in a room, and the employees, the
Mhm.
brand managers, the users, all make suggestions or about things they saw, things they've used at other companies, things that they're using in their show, and maybe other shows should use it. But is that fair to suppliers in a way? Because employees aren't experts about software necessarily. And also, they can only make suggestions to the extent that they understand what the use cases that work for them are. So how do you feel about that? Is that just putting sort of like this, cone of silence over the organization that the suppliers that have really good products can't penetrate?
Hmm. It's interesting because I think it's a good use case because if you're looking at like the one of the organizers that were there, that they have multiple portfolios, obviously, and different market portfolio leaders that run different events, and they each probably use different technology. So it's important to show, like, usually they have those meetups and they share best practices or they share successes from their own things, and that's how it's almost they become your brand ambassadors as a suppliers internally or champions to kind of help introduce your product to another portfolio that maybe not heard of you, which is a great thing. And that's one of the referral part of it, which is amazing to have internally. But then that same organizer, for example, like you end up with so many different technologies that is not optimal use for a large organization. So that's why the role one of the panelists is that reviewing everything that's being done there and go on the hunt. So there's a role of that person that to champion the curation of the right technology for the company to be more efficient and also innovative at the same time. And that role of that person is going scout a little bit what's out there and then doing that vetting process and then bringing in possibly one or two that gets used across the board, so that kind of removes all this onboarding and all this hassle of dealing with a lot of different technologies who might do the same thing to a certain degree internally. So I believe it's an interesting process to get that, and I see more and more companies or agencies doing that, where they have those monthly calls or monthly meetups and lunch and learns and stuff like that, and they'll invite someone to come in and present what's out there, something that they didn't know about, but it will be somebody else who saw it and it's like, oh, that would be an interesting one to bring in internally to showcase it. Or it could be from internal usage that they can invite their friend, like their colleagues, to check out what they've done with that specific technology. I think it has a great opportunity for showcasing
It's
new
sort
tech.
of though, I want your viewpoint on this. It sort of blows apart our process in marketing. First, we find the buyer, then we create this persona, then we try and market to that persona. Well, when everyone in the company is like involved in recommending and influencing decision making, what does that do for suppliers that are trying to target their messages towards different people in different roles? It's like, okay, now everyone's an influencer
Oh,
and you've got to like, I don't know, does it make your your job of conveying what you do and what the benefits and features are more difficult? Because now everyone has to be, you got to figure out an angle for everyone. The,
for
the
everyone, yeah.
person
Well, you're
that
solving a
controls.
problem. Yeah, you're solving a problem for different personas, but the end goal, all of it together, is kind of probably common in terms of event. I mean, I'm looking at it from my point of view, but it could be different from different technology suppliers. Really, that they might work with different departments even for different purposes. Uh, I mean, all of it. Marketing. You need to have a lot of different touch points. To even get to an action. So a lot of it is awareness, and then creating interest, and well, and then getting them to try it. And you have that champion internally who's going to help you push that closer to getting in front of them and actually having a conversation. And one of the things, like it's interesting. There was something I asked the question there. It's like they mentioned about having suppliers come in and then showcase what they have and all that. But it, the question is, like, how are we as suppliers? How are you telling us what changing and what direction you might be doing that will affect maybe how our product is going to be shaped? Because it's almost like goes both ways. You telling me your challenge, but like you have your own direction, and you might be changing directions. You might be business objective is different, but how are we getting it as suppliers to understand what's going on with you, so we can tell you, okay, well, this is what we have. We already have something that will solve this one. Or maybe if we hear it enough from different clients, then it will say, okay, maybe this is something that we can consider working on in our roadmap, for example. So
Yeah, and
conversation has to go both ways.
yeah, it brings up two things. In one part of the presentation, one of the organizers was talking about a process that they have where they bring in different vendors, and
Mm.
then they have different tracks manned by an internal person, like say the marketing department versus the logistics department versus
Yeah,
HR, whatever. And then they they put the vendor sort of through the ringer in all these different tracks, like 6 or 7 or 8 tracks. Now
yeah.
they say that they let them know in advance what the questions are going to be, so that nobody, it's not like they're caught off guard. But it sounded like so onerous, and it's a big company. So I guess if you get to that point as a vendor, it's worth it. But it
It's
sounded like the Spanish Inquisition to me. It was just kind of like you're in this big room, and then they're pelting questions at you, then another person, then another person. It's like,
oh my god,
oh,
yeah,
it
it
just
sounds like
freaks
Shark
me
Tank.
out. Like if
That's
you're if you're something, you're a startup, which probably if you are, you wouldn't get to that point. But
well, you never know. You
it's
never know.
daunting.
But
How would you feel?
terrified?
Yeah.
No, but I get it. I mean, it's a nice I mean, obviously it was a big organizer and they have a lot of different things, and that's one of the things that I was saying is, they're trying to streamline the onboarding of new technology or vetting existing technology in order to be able to make it easy and simplify the sourcing product process. So they don't
Mhm.
have, because they might have like multiple technologies doing the same thing, but why do we have this? And they have all the licenses with all of them, and some of them, it can add up at the end of the day. So it's an important one. I don't see this happening, like I don't see them doing this on like every year, or maybe who knows. But as a supplier, it is, you have to weigh in also the benefit, I guess, and the potential, business potential from doing something like this. So it is time intensive and it's a lot of work. But I would ask in return, like I would love to hear from them what their challenges are and what they're doing, because they're learning from us in a way too. Because what I mentioned to them is like, we work with multiple clients. So obviously we see the different maybe challenges, use cases, what's working, what's not working. And we're able to share that, which is interesting for a client to tell them, this is what we've seen work, you might try, or different things that they can play around with it. I would love to hear from the organizer too, to feed us that kind of information as well from their side, to learn a little bit more about that. And I
So
know
do
that
you see this comment from Mike Hatch, Rachel?
you need to
Um,
market to all influencers, but there's typically one contact champion that drives a product review and purchase. Totally, that's perfect, Michael. But at the same time, like you have all these people that will influence, that decision. So they're not necessarily the ones they're making the decision, but they recommend and they bring it up. Say, we're interested in this. How about that? We get that sometimes, and the clients that come to us, the end client saw, let's say, Snowball, they liked it, but they're working with an agency, so they're going to bring in an agency. So that's also another one. It's not even internal, it's like you have your agency that does the marketing for you, so they bring it to the agency then has to come to us and have to also demo it to them and show them what that would look like. And then if they get that seal of approval from the agency, then the company move forward with it. So there's multiple layers of people that you're selling to, or showcasing your product in order to get the buy-in from the different stakeholders, whether internal or external, in a way.
do you ever do you ever get the feeling, or do you, I don't know if you have much experience outside the event industry, but is this sort of the hoops that vendors have to jump through? Is this normal, or are we in events just applying all these sort of constraints as risk mitigation tactics, or, I don't know, is this just us as an industry, or does this happen everywhere? Because it
That I
seems
don't
like,
know.
really, I don't want to ever be in your shoes.
Why? No, it's
It
fun.
just seems tough. It
Oh, it's
seems really
fun.
tough, you
I
know?
I mean I'm excited. Every time I have to show or talk about it, I get excited and passionate. That's a good sign because I never get bored because I love it. I guess, and I never saw myself as a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. I love helping, and I love giving ideas, and showing like what could be done, what are the possibilities, and putting it also like in how to help them. Because like I said, like the one of the comments that they were saying on the panels, like a lot of the companies, or they're in love with the product, they're in love with their own product, and they're not listening specifically to what the organizer wants, or what is their problem, and how can you tie this pain point to this solution that you have in order to get closer. And the more you are transparent, and knowing this one here, the more trust you gain with them, and then you build that relationship with them.
So the one panelist was a very large trade association.
Yeah.
And this person said that the criteria that they use for vetting technology companies is number one, that the company demonstrate that the vendor coming in is not going to take up thousands of hours of internal time trying to implement it, learn it, get it moving through the gears, because they already don't have time. That's number one.
Mm.
Number two, that it's going to give them a capability that they didn't have before the software was introduced. Logical. And number three is that it has a data value add. So at the end of the day, when the software goes to sleep at night, they have this data exhaust that has a value component to it. And so do you think that those are fair, requirements? Should all vendors just come in right from the get-go and go, okay, I won't mess up your bandwidth. I'll give you value, whatever. That should be part of the value proposition. What do you feel about
I
that?
mean, time is of an essence to everybody. So if you're bringing a solution that's gonna add more work to what you already have, that's a no go off the bat right there. It's supposed to solve a problem and not add to it, or not solve one and add more on the other side of it. The other point is the data, which is something that was also brought up quite a bit. The mention of the data lake, which was a new term.
Yeah,
You have all these data also floating around everywhere, and how can you bring it into one place to kind of talk to each other, and extract from it some insight that will help you with recommendations, or new directions that you might go with it. And that's the other thing, is also like you onboard one technology, but the important is to understand how this technology is talking to the other one. So yes, the organizers are talking with the suppliers talking to the organizer, they're talking internally, but how about the tech talking to the tech? So
right.
you have these, they have to speak to each other. In some cases we did, the client gets excited, they want to work with us, and then, okay, well, we need to integrate with, let's say, your registration company in order to get this up and going. And then you have a blockage there. It's like, oh no, we don't play. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes you have those roadblocks that the client did not know that, that company is not willing to play, or not open up, or be flexible, or is going to charge them an arm and a leg, in some cases more than they would pay us just to integrate with us, which doesn't make sense. So they drop it altogether, all frustrated. It's like, they did not know that that was not part of their uh, list of requirements initially for that, with that vendor, for
Yeah,
example.
so that also came up in the presentation, and I
Yeah.
feel like I've been writing about having an open API for about the last at least 7 years. Like, I wanna just poke my eyeballs out. Why is this still a thing
I
that
know.
companies don't understand? You have to have, an easy way to connect technologies, because no, I don't care what you say, no all-in-one platform can really do it all. There are gonna be some things that another lovely piece of software that does it so well is gonna need to plug in. So what is going on with that? Why
I
is
don't
it so
know.
hard?
I don't know. And like it boggles my mind that today we're still having these conversations. I mean, they have to speak to each other, because not one is going to do it well. And there are some softwares that are niche that will do one thing really well, but they need to plug in with other ones too, to kind of make it all work together. And the data that's going to come out of it is so fractioned, because you have all these different technologies that are all getting different things, and yet they're not talking to each other. I just got a survey right now from something, and it's like, but I already did that, and I have that information on me already. Why am
Mhm.
I re-answering this again? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a disconnect between technology, and there's disconnect sometimes even between internal departments of how to streamline
So
certain.
let's talk about data. that came
We
up.
have 4 minutes left to talk about data.
One,
That's the big,
well,
big
just
thing.
one aspect of data. Oh, and I got lots more questions. Nobody
Oh,
said
I know
anything
you
about.
do.
One of the criteria was that the vendor has to be able to give them back the data.
Yeah.
And apparently, there are companies still out there that the data flows in, but it doesn't flow back out to the organizer. Why is that happening? And do they not understand that data is like this quintessential, critical, important thing, and that they're going to be out of the running if they don't do it? What's going on with that?
I have no idea.
It's their data.
It's their
Why
data, but
does the
it
vendor
is
not give it
his
back?
data. Absolutely. They have to have access to it and they have to know what to do with it. And in some cases, to be fair, too, like a lot of times, you finish an event and you just want to move forward and you don't want to go back and look at what happened in your data. Or finding ways, something to interpret data that will give you the data in a way that's easy to interpret, or give you recommendations of what that data represents and means, and how can you make improvement based on what they collected.
So I know our time is coming to a close, but I have one thing that came up there that I was also really curious about. One of the organizers said that vendors need to know that they can't be telling us what to do, how we should operate the software, what our sort of roadmap is. That's for us as the organizer to decide. So it made me think, are some tech providers so big that they feel they can be in a position to say, this is the way to do something, and it's my way or the highway? Is that what's going on? Is there kind of a monopoly on some of the larger tech providers? And it's not only that they're dictating the organizers, maybe they're also dictating to smaller, you know, plug and play, specialized software companies too. You have
Yeah.
to play the way that we're designed.
Yeah, I think that happens too, because the bigger you are, the more rigid you are also to adjust or do things differently with the client, or with even small companies, like for example us. And I've seen it, the minute, I mean, some of them, it's like, okay, we want to integrate with you. It's like, okay, you go do the work, figure it out, here's our data, the documentation, and if we need to do something for you on our side, we're going to charge you to do that. That's one thing. And then next thing you know, you have other ones who are more in the mindset, we're in this as a partnership, we're going to help our client, our common client.
Mhm.
They're going to be so flexible, and they just turn around, the support is there, and they're just going to be, okay, we just made it work immediately, the client is happy, and it's our common clients. So if you're serving them, we're serving them, and they're happy with it, one, they're going to renew, two, you just turn them into an ambassador for you and your product to help promote it. So it's key to play, but you see more flexibility and agility in smaller type of companies with a mindset that of growth and adjusting, and then working closely with the clients to what they need. So it makes a big
So
difference.
finally, Rachel,
Yes.
in a perfect world, how should this exchange of information go? Because I know that a lot of organizers hold back. They don't want to say their budget. They
Mm.
don't want to say who else they're talking to. They don't want to really reveal sometimes what their end goals are. And to be fair, maybe they don't know. They just heard AI is a perfect example. We want
Mm.
AI. We want software platforms that do stuff with
Bells
AI.
and whistles.
Yeah, we don't really know what we're asking for, but we want AI. And so there often is not the kind of honest exchange that there should be
Yeah.
on both sides. So in a perfect world, what would you like that exchange to look like so that you can do your job better, and that they can have more capabilities and capacity and do all the things that the software purports they can do? What would that world look like?
It's a good question, Michelle. I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, they'll be having discussions together and doing that. I see more and more companies from a supplier point of view doing like a customer advisory boards, where they actually talk to actual clients, their clients, and share with them where they're going. So they're almost building together with that client, and the client is influencing where they're going with it, but also getting feedback from that client to see where they're going as well. But that's assuming that you already have the client. So we do, we see that there's a lot of tech demos and showcasing a technology and everything. I would like to reverse it, actually, and have the clients and potential ones, let them pitch us a little bit, like, what's your problem? Bring, not that in a bad way, like, what's your problem, but
No problem. Yeah.
what's your problem? Tell us. Come
Yeah.
have sessions where they come bring your own challenge and let the technology solve for it, as opposed to being the other way around, trying to fit the technology in that way. Maybe they'll help, influence a roadmap of something to create a product that we might have didn't think of doing.
I mean, it just sounds like sales and pitching and this data exchange. It almost sounds dirty. Like people don't want to be sold to, and
Don't say
the
selling, it's
suppliers
solving.
they
It's
have to like
solving. It's
what?
solving together, not selling. It's solving
I
together.
know, but it isn't treated in that way, and that's why a lot of suppliers are excluded from conversations because they come in with like, we do this and we do that, and we have AI, and we ring your bell, and we do all these things. The buyers hate it, so it's like, why can't we just all get along? Yeah. Like in the season of giving and
I
receiving.
know. Peace and love.
Oh, I wish, I wish. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
kind of a rhetorical question, but what do you think?
Me?
Yeah. Shouldn't we
We,
all
s-
just get along?
I would hope so. Yes. Peace
If
on earth.
cats and dogs want to sleep together, can't they?
Yes, they can actually.
Isn't there a nice way to handle
Some of
this?
them do. Some of them do.
Oh, well, let's close with Michael's comment. It sounds like a good one. The answer is complicated. Oh, yes. There's
Sometimes that is
limitations and arrogance and factors that influence how a tech company responds to a client. Yeah, I think you got to be in it to win it. You have to have finesse. You have to, there's just like so many things. That's why I sometimes pity you, Rachel, for I know you're excited, but I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I just love looking at it and writing about it. And on that note, I will end. And we will be here next week. We will also be talking about tech. And Dahlia will be back. Maybe we can lure Liz back in for our
end of
final,
year. Yeah.
yes, our end of year prognostication. No, we won't do that. And we won't probably do trends. But we'll be talking and we'll be here for you as you're getting ready for the holidays, or as you got through the holidays you were just through with Hanukkah or whatever else. And we so enjoy having our geniuses come here every week and give us their thoughts. And thank you again, Rachel, for filling in, for being you.
Oh,
And
thank you
we
for having
will see you all next week.
me. All right. Happy holidays, everybody. I won't see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Am I staying or